they told me I'd be in Hackensack 6 months, and it's been 49 years so far, Ademola. So basically, I thought I'd be in the program, and then I'd get out and go back to Dartmouth and continue my life. But that's not how it worked out. Basically, I was in the program for 5 years. After 5 years, I got my own apartment in Hackensack, and went back to college at Fairleigh Dickinson, graduated in 1985, magna cum laude in English. I'd always wanted to be a writer, so that's why I majored in English. And so then I started a business as a private tutor, helping Fairleigh Dickinson students write papers. And I did that for a while, and then I had a time of like just chilling. I just would like drink beer and smoke pot every day from basically 1998, 2007, when I gave up everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to the King Dems Podcast, where we share the stories of extraordinary people and dissect hot topics. Let's deep dive into thought-provoking conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. And of course, you once again welcome to the King Dems Podcast. And today I have with me, from the other side of the pond, a very, very interesting warrior. Make welcome, Dale E. Walsh. How are you, Dale? Whoa, you are at war with the baby boomers.
Well, yeah, we'll get into that.
Who is at war with his own generation? Who? Because I am the diplomat between the Generation X and the Generation Z. But the baby boomers? I don't know.
Well, we'll go into this. I want to give my introduction, but in the last week, I've developed a very close relationship with a group of Z-Geners. So,
whoa, interesting. So you're young. You're young again.
They're my top who are going to carry out my will. And even though a lot of people would see them as the spawn of Satan, they're actually the ultimate children of Dewey Death, who's one of my basic personalities, and who's been running the world for the last 40 years, Ademola. But we'll get into it.
Okay, we'll get into it. But at first you were trying to pronounce my name, and of course I wanted you to give it a go. And you said my last name especially sounds like something. Do you want to say that?
Oh, yeah. Well, your last name is Odewade. So you have lemonade or Gatorade, and then there's Dew, which is my initials and who I am now. I progressed beyond Dale. Because we'll go into that too. So I'm now DW, and so it's Odewade.
Odewade, and you got Gatorade and lemonade.
So let's
like gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Let's.
Well. We're talking about understanding and overcoming, and not just overcoming, thriving with schizophrenia today. We're exploring mental health, the stigma that comes with it, the journey from psychosis to recovery, and setting the stage with you. Can you share your own personal journey with schizophrenia? What were the early signs, and how did it impact your own life and your education?
Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't really have any early signs. I was always like a very energetic, enthusiastic guy. So I went to the best boarding school in America, Phillips Exeter Academy. I was a 4-year boy. Of my entering freshman class of 109, only 52 graduated. And then I went to England for a year, and then I
you were in England.
I was at. Have you ever heard of Haileybury?
Haileybury.
It's in Hertfordshire. It's
Hertfordshire. I know Hertfordshire.
Yes.
Hertfordshire.
So anyway, after England, I went to Dartmouth College, which is an Ivy League school. And I had a very successful, but drug-filled and degenerate year at Dartmouth for my freshman year. I had like a B+, A- average and upper level courses, but I was also smoking high-powered Ivy League marijuana every day.
Ivy League marijuana. Whoa, marijuana that went to Harvard.
Yeah, and I was also doing LSD and mescaline and mushrooms and other hallucinogenics. And at the end, I got into a little cocaine at the end, but I never liked cocaine. I think I hate cocaine. You know
Why? Why though?
I just think it's an evil drug. I think it's the devil's drug.
The devil's drug. Oh wow, interesting. So tell me about it.
Anyway, I used to say, if you legalize marijuana, you can get rid of cocaine within 2 years. And, so
Really?
President, that's something I'm going to do.
Joe Rogan and what's his name now? The richest man in the world, Elon Musk. They were talking about marijuana and cocaine. Joe Rogan, that Elon Musk was like, he has met a lot of people who are creatives, right? Who use marijuana, and the marijuana helps them with their creative process. It helps them get into a different dimension, right? But for cocaine, he doesn't like the drug. And it makes me quite curious, like, what is it about cocaine, right? That it gets really bad.
It just makes you evil. It makes you evil.
Okay.
It's the devil's drug.
And, Elon Musk was like, have you ever seen anybody who would say, I have become a better person from taking cocaine? He has never met that person. But he has met people who have said, I have become a better person by taking marijuana.
Well, actually, let me do my introductory poem, because this is basically started a lot of podcasts, and it's a poem that I wrote in 2015 called Dale Reviewing What Actually Happened. And Dale is the form. It's a form that I came up with. It's 6 words a line, 2 sets of 9 rhymes apiece. This is Dale reviewing what actually happened. Why on God preventing me from getting sanity back until I came to Teaneck Hackensack to pursue resident therapy program track and deal with my evident lack of reason among psychiatric patient back who never gave me any slack. Under interrogation, the story in crack. So,
and we would love to have you back. Whoa, spoken word artistry. I appreciate the artistry.
Well, that I actually have another deal that I use as an introduction too, if you want to hear that.
I'm all for it. I love artistry.
Okay. Well advanced to becoming Robert Frost at Dartmouth on my mind lost and was from Ivy League tossed. Put into therapy at considerable cost to have my brain teeth flossed by the doctor whom he bossed. Every night after I got sauced at the hospital where I was host and met the beautiful female Jill, for whom over dale over hill I trekked when I was ill, until I found the perfect pill to keep chemical unbound steaming still, which made romantic chances virtually nil. Even while perfecting my poetic skill, I hope will pay the bills for sodas on which I fill.
Wow. And if we were to get you to write more poems, what would be the bill?
Well, actually, I have 5,000 poems in my archives.
Whoa.
I also have 5 books on Amazon.
Interesting. 5 books on Amazon. What books do you have on Amazon?
They're all poetry collections.
Oh, wow.
And actually, I have another one ready. I'm just waiting to get the cover done, but I haven't done a book since 2018. So basically, it's been 7 years since I put out a new book. But as I say, I have a new book ready of stuff that I wrote in 2024. And actually, one of the offers that I'm going to make is I just set up my own author's Gmail so that people can write me at this Gmail and get some books, and they it's pay as you can. So if you can pay nothing, it's free. If you want to pay a lot, then it's worth it. It's due poetry, so we'll go into that at the end. So anyway, here I was at Dartmouth College, and I figured I figured out what I thought was the greatest joke I'd ever come up with. Hi, I'm God. Because how could God be 5'8"? So I was walking around campus telling everybody my joke and then laughing hysterically at the punchline, which is how could God be 5'8"? So after 3 days of doing this, I'm in my best friend's, for the terms of room, smoking a bowl of hash, and I'm talking to his friend and basically driving my friend insane. And so it's his best friend. So the friend leaves, and I get, I've expressed my anger. So I say, okay, let's get stoned. So
you did smoke ash.
just a little. There wasn't that much hash. It was mostly
marijuana. Because ash is not as strong as marijuana, right?
No, this is back in the 70s when hash was a lot stronger. That's why it was hard to get.
Okay.
We also had opiated hash, which was the best.
Oh, America, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Anyway, so I'm lighting the bowl of hash, and the campus cops come in and they stand over me and they say, "Are you Dale?" I say,
"What Dale? It depends on what Dale you're looking for."
Well, everybody says I should have said, "No, I'm God." Anyway, so they say, "Are you Dale?" And I say, "Yes." And they say, "Would you come with us, please?" So I said, "Sure." I figured they were going to take me to meet the president of the university, but instead they took me on a 3-minute ride to the infirmary where I spent the next 4 hours being interrogated by 3 Ivy League psychiatrists, and then they put me in a room, gave me a shot, and 2 days later I was in a mental hospital in New York City with a roommate named Gabriel. So
Gabriel.
It was very deferential towards my mother, Mary, whose second husband's name was Joseph, and who ultimately married the judge. But that's a whole different story. Anyway, so I was in this hospital for 13 weeks, and then my parent, Dartmouth, said I couldn't come back because I'd had a psychological withdrawal. So they said I had to wait for a year before I could come back. So my parents were very concerned about what to do with me. I wanted to go work sewer pipelining in Oklahoma, which I'd done the previous 2 summers, but they wanted me to get help and be around peers. So they found this program in Hackensack under the direction of one doctor, Dr. B. So I came to him. They told me I'd be in Hackensack 6 months, and it's been 49 years so for Ademola. So basically I thought I'd be in the program, and then I'd get out and go back to Dartmouth and continue my life. But that's not how it worked out. Basically, I was in the program for 5 years. After 5 years, I got my own apartment in Hackensack and went back to college at Fairleigh Dickinson, graduated in 1985, magna cum laude in English. I'd always wanted to be a writer, so that's why I majored in English. And so then I started a business as a private tutor, helping Fairleigh Dickinson students write papers, and I did that for a while, and then I had a time of just chilling. I just would drink beer and smoke pot every day from basically 1998 2007 when I gave up everything. So basically those are degenerate years. But so in October 2007. I gave up everything, including marijuana. I call it straight, sane, and sober. And everything was like that. That was the status quo for the last 17 years. But let me digress here about Dale. So basically, as I said, I don't consider myself, I consider Dale a place now. I feel that Dale is like the Garden of Eden, because Dale means valleys. So my best friend from Dartmouth always used to say about Nietzsche, he says, Nietzsche's philosophy can be summarized by one phrase: make all your summits valleys. And so since valley means Dale is Scottish for valley, I've simply adopted it and said, make all your summits Dales. So basically what happened was After 10 years of intensive psychotherapy, Dale conceived of the world as a never-ending saga of duck versus muck. And ducks are the people, the beings created in Dale's image, and the mucks are the people created in Satan's image. So, but basically, when I was the doctor was like the godfather of muck. He was like the big leader of the mucks. Basically, after 10 years, there was a muck offensive in September of 1984, and so my campus, Fairleigh Dickinson campus, was my duck soldiers. So it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and I went. I there's a river, there's a bridge across the Hackensack River separating me from my apartment and the campus. So basically, I was walking across the bridge at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I had a series of flashes. I'll never remember what the first four were, but the fifth one was of my crazy Irish super bursting in on the old couple across the hall with an M16, and then the sixth image was of seeing the entire Earth being incinerated in a thermonuclear holocaust. I call that death, the death of Dale. So basically, Dale, and that we entered the death of Dewey. We entered the era of Dewey death, and Dewey death has been looking. Dewey death. If Dale thought he was a god, if Dale thought he was God, then Dewey thought he was an android. So Dewey's duck android program was wait in Hackensack for me to get back, meaning Dale. So it's been 40 years, but in the last 2 weeks, after breaking down and having 2 joints, Dale is now on the verge of rebirth in Hackensack. So nobody knows what Dale is because it's all been Dewey death for the last 40 years. And an interesting synchronicity that I look, and the thing is that for a long time I didn't know who actually killed Dale. I thought it could have been God, it could have been Dale himself, it could have been Dewey. But it could have been communists and it could have been terrorists. So actually, just last week, I looked up September 27th, 1984, to see what happened the day after the death of Dale. And it says, Kabul falls to Taliban. So that basically answers the question of who killed Dale. Because the Taliban had to take Dale out in order to be able to conquer Afghanistan. Basically,
what a significant one.
So basically, Dale for the last 40 years has been at the front line of Afghan wars, fighting the terrorists. That this is obviously this is like 1984, which is 17 years before 9/11. So. And I've been fighting the mucks since I got taken away from Dartmouth. So I've been fighting the mucks for 50 years and the terrorists for 40 years. But the good news, Ademola, not to get boring, but the good news is Dale is back in Hackensack. And Dale is finally home from the wars that he's been intensely involved with for the last 40 years. So, in the past, I once did a Ouija board, and I said, when did Dale last die? This is like in 1978, I asked. So it said 1929. So if you look at the years between 1929 and 1955, when Dale was born in Texas, those were the years of Dewey death for the world. The Depression, World War II, and the Korean War. And then Dale came back and we had the Vietnam War, but I don't know if you know this, but the first American service casualty in Vietnam was named Dale. So basically, but this is actually, so since he got death, so basically Dale has been fighting at the front lines tooth and nail against the demon mucks for the last 40 years. Basically what happened was the terrorists flew Dale to the deepest pit of hell. And he's been fighting for 40 years to get back to Hackensack. And I have my queen, who I met in 2020. I've never seen or heard her, but we text every night for 3 hours. And so anyway, she was my Beatrice out of Dante's Inferno. She's, I didn't know it till 2020, but now it's become obvious that she's the beacon, the light, the love that made me never give up.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is very, very selfless of her. And yeah, love and respect to her. But right now, in terms of these personalities and their places, what is the role of Dewey Death right now?
Well, Dewey Death has been evacuated from Hackensack. He's on permanent vacation. He's on vacation for as long as he went. He's done his service. He did 40 years at Hackensack.
40 years and
he's the greatest death warrior. So basically, this is also relevant. So I'm a Disney chipmunk because of Chip and Dale, right? Do you know Disney at all?
Yes, I do.
I'm a Disney chipmunk because of Chip and Dale, but did you know I'm also a Disney duck? Well, my initials are Dew, my father's initials are Lou, my best friend's name is Hugh, and Hugh's father's name is Donald. So you get Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Donald. So that's the reality. And this is my second great 7-year joke. My first 7-year joke was, "Hi, I'm God," and he got me in a lot of hot water. But the second 7-year joke is even funnier, and it is very not non-confrontational. It goes, what do you get when you cross the Disney chipmunks with the Disney ducks?
A Disney, wow, that's a Disney bird.
Too. Me, too.
Whoa, I see. Nice one. Nice lines. Your experience in Dartmouth College, was sort of a make or break. Right. But the drugs, do you think they were linked to the psychosis, or was the psychosis existed prior to the drug?
In my first hospital, my doctor said, you can smoke pot till it comes out of your ears still, but never do LSD again. So I really think that if I just stuck to marijuana and not done the hallucinogenics that I did, I think I probably would have breezed through. But no, it was just too much for the brain for me to, with all that LSD that was on me. They say the last trip is the longest, and the last trip has been 50 years. But basically, the LSD, I think, is the thing that tipped me, that brought around the tipping point into psychosis. But,
So what LSDs are we talking about here?
LSD.
Yeah, which LSDs were you taking at the time?
Well, there were a lot of varieties. What have you ever heard of an electric Kool-Aid acid test?
No.
Okay, well, that's a book by Thomas Wolfe about the Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters who were the first proponents of LSD. So you know what LSD is, right?
Oh, I do know that they're a particular class of drugs.
Yeah, it's so it's an hallucinogenic, and it's very powerful. So anyway, Tom Wolfe wrote a book called The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, and what that is where you take a lot of LSD, put it in a Kool-Aid, not Jim Jordan's.
In Kool-Aid, I see.
As an Odewade.
No way, my name again. Let him put it in lemonade, not Kool-Aid, but
But so basically, they put acid in Kool-Aid, and then you can have as many people drink it until it runs out. So basically, a week before I got taken away from Dartmouth, there was a Kool-Aid acid test at a fraternity, and I had 3 cups.
Whoa, that is crazy.
I've never hallucinated on LSD either.
Really? So what happened? Because LSDs are very, very much associated with, hallucination. They're psychedelic drugs. Right.
So is schizophrenic, because if you talk to normal people, they say, well, schizophrenics always hallucinate. I've never hallucinated in my life. Ademola. Even when I was doing 3 cups of LSD, I've never hallucinated in my life. So basically, that brings up my point that every case of schizophrenia is different. I've never
It's
heard
different.
voice. I've never had visual hallucinations. I've never done anything like that. But
What did you experience?
uh, just like more deal.
The multiple personalities, the switch.
Well, no, actually, it's just it's very hard for me to explain because it's something that's an internal feeling of
Hmm.
just like energy and joy and bliss. My doctor called my illness for the first 7 years until I applied for disability and found out my official diagnosis is paranoid schizophrenic schizoaffective. He called it psychotic bliss. And he would put me in the hospital whenever I got too happy because I would, he was the godfather of muck, so I'd blow up all his plans and he'd have to put me in the hospital just to survive. When it comes to drugs, I never hallucinated, but I would definitely know, that I was on LSD. So just to give you an example, my girlfriend for that summer at Dartmouth was at the Kool-Aid acid test too. And so we ended up on the rooftop and alone. And so we just started to make out and she couldn't do it. She just started laughing too hard. So she said, I got to go. And I never saw her again because I got taken away within the next week.
So, it's essential to understand schizophrenia, right? So, what are the common misconceptions about schizophrenia, and how does it differ from what the media portrays it as?
Well, the media portrays schizophrenia as every schizophrenic is an insane serial killer. That's
Okay.
basically how it's portrayed. And of course, that's totally false. But that's the idea that a lot of people have about schizophrenia. Hallucinations, delusions. Okay, I might have had delusion, but I feel that actually my delusion has been justified over time. But
Mm.
and I used to say, I still do say, I said I was God when I was 20, and I've been under intensive therapeutic care for 50 years, and nobody's ever disproved my idea. So, I mean, the best doctors have tried, but they haven't been able to do it. So, you know, um, but I lost my thought. Okay. So basically, people think schizophrenics are hallucinating, delusional madmen or women. That's basically the idea that people have about it. And I've come up with what I think is a very good definition of schizophrenia, which is a schizophrenia is living in a reality that was not conceived on Earth.
Okay, so you have your own definition, and I think for the benefit of the audience, I will pull up and present the presentation by the NHS in England on
Sure,
schizophrenia. So let
you
me
can read it, right?
make, yes, let me make this a presentation. So according to the NHS, right? Schizophrenia is a long-term mental health condition. It causes a range of different psychological symptoms. Doctors often describe schizophrenia as a type of psychosis. This means the person may not always be able to distinguish their own thoughts and ideas from reality. Symptoms of schizophrenia can include hallucinations, hearing or seeing things that do not exist outside of the mind, delusions, unusual beliefs not based on reality, muddled thoughts, and speech based on hallucinations or delusions, losing interest in everyday activities, not wanting to look after yourself and your needs, such as caring about your personal hygiene, wanting to avoid people, including friends, feeling disconnected from your feelings or emotions. People with schizophrenia do not have a split personality. Schizophrenia does not usually cause someone to be violent. So when to seek,
So I think I think that's all we need because I can just if you want to
okay,
read when medical advice, that would be
okay,
good
okay.
too.
I guess what I'll just probably read again is the causes of schizophrenia. It says the exact cause of schizophrenia is unknown, but most experts believe the condition is caused by a combination of genetic and environmental factors. It's thought that some people are more vulnerable to developing schizophrenia, and certain situations can trigger the condition, such as a stressful life event or drug misuse.
Yeah,
So
so
there we go.
that's true. My mother was diagnosed. We never found out exactly what her diagnosis was, but she dealt with mental illness for 50 years. So I had the genetic predisposition for
Mm-hmm.
mental illness, and like I say, I think the
Couple the
LSD.
drug use.
Yeah, and answer. If you can pull that back up again, I've only experienced like 3 of those symptoms. One is delusions. One is
Okay.
Yeah, let's pull that back up. Okay, go back to the top. So the 3 symptoms I've experienced is delusions, unusual beliefs not based on realities, which was all based on my God thoughts, not wanting to look after yourself and your needs, such as not caring about your personal hygiene. That was a big issue for me for a long time. I wouldn't take showers, and
Whoa.
I wouldn't do my laundry. And to tell you the truth, Ademola, it barely, for a period, I was famous for my body odor, and people.
No way.
Yeah,
Famous. No, I guess that is notorious, not famous.
right, infamous. And then the other one is feeling disconnected from your feelings or emotions. That's also
Uh,
happened to me, especially when I go to the hospital.
wow. So, how were you able to overcome this? Are you happy for me to stop sharing the slide?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Well, I think this is a good time to talk about agnosognosia. So agnosognosia is Anosognosia. Now, agnosognosia is a symptom that's pulled. The word is pulled from a neurology for stroke victims who can't understand they're sick, that there's anything wrong with their brain. Basically, agnosognosia has been found to be active in as many as like 70% of people with severe mental illness. And
Mm.
that means they can't understand that. So it's not denial. People say, how can you deny that you're sick and everything? It's not denial. It's the inability to comprehend that anything's wrong with their brain. And therefore, it's sort of like holding a book up to a blind person and saying, read this.
Mm.
So agnosognosia is like a very big obstacle to recovery, because if you don't think there's anything wrong with you, why are you going to take medication and see a doctor and everything? So in my case, basically I was put in the hospital, and then I came to the program where I was in individual therapy 3 times a week, group therapy twice a week. So basically I was forced into therapy.
Mm.
Even though I didn't think there was anything wrong, I didn't think there was anything wrong with saying I was God, because I thought I was. So, and so, actually, I just to digress a second. When I got sick, my equation in my mind was Dale equals God, and
Whoa, that
so
is audacious.
now the equation is Jesus equals God squared equals Dale cubed. So Dale is the cube root of Jesus rather than actually being Jesus. So, and the nice thing about that equation is you can like substitute any name for the Dale, because Dale has now become everyman. So basically everybody is in a mathematical relationship to Jesus and God.
Oh, that sounds quite audacious.
Eh,
Anosognosia. That is ANOSO.
Correct.
So it's a
So
condition.
I know what I wanted to say about agnosognosia. So basically, for the first 10 years of my therapy, of my psychiatric journey, it was in agnosognosia. And the death of Dale had the effect of literally blowing my mind. And basically, I lost my Dale personality, and with that, I lost my God delusion. And I actually began to see how sick I had been saying I was God. So, and then now it's been 40 years since Dale was gone. I've evolved into Lord Do God, or actually Commander Do, and who's the Supreme Elite Dewey Dale elite leader. So basically, Dale has been gone, and Dewey was orchestrating everything from Teaneck Hackensack City, the holiest city, THC, and now Dewey has been evacuated, and Commander Dew is here to finish off the last vestiges of the Duck versus Muck War, where
So,
everybody becomes a duck.
I like that. The poetry would always sound true. Quickly for the audience, right? Anosognosia, right? Quite a mouthful, is a situation or a condition, right? Wherein a schizophrenic refuses to acknowledge their condition
No, it is not.
and refuses
That's
help.
a big difference. It's not it refuses to acknowledge. It's an inability to comprehend. There's a big difference.
Inability
Because
to comprehend. Let's check what the NHS says about it.
okay, you want to put it on screen?
Oh yes, definitely. I'm just trying to get a very, very, what I say, reputable source, basically.
Right.
So I have the AI overview here.
So
I guess.
you might want you can either go to NAMI, NAMI, or TAC, which is the Advocacy Center. They both have very good. They're both very into agnosognosia, so they have good definitions.
Okay, so this is Scottish Acquired Brain Injury Network. It's called Agnosia. Okay.
Yep.
So the word agnosia derives from Greek and means without knowledge. Agnosia refers to impairment of the ability to process and interpret sensory information. These may affect the person's ability to recognize, identify their immediate environment and things within it. There are many different types of agnosia, some of which are common following brain injury and others which are rarely seen. So let's go to the AI overview. Right here, it says anosognosia, meaning lack of awareness of having a disorder or disability, is a neurological condition where individuals are unaware of their neurological deficits or psychiatric conditions, often seen after stroke or in conditions like dementia.
Yes, it's still being referred to in neurological terms, but it has been translated to psychiatry. There's a great book about this, which is called "I'm Not Sick and I Don't Need Help." Dr. Xavier Amador, Amador, and it's the story of how he learned to communicate with his brother who had schizophrenia for 17 years, and just how to, sometimes you can never overcome agnosognosia, but you can learn to work around it. And that's really like what the book is about, is like how to work around agnosognosia, because there's no guarantee, with me, it took an extreme, event to get me out of my agnosognosia. Basically, the whole personality and identity system of Dale died. It was blown away. And that's the thing about delusion that people don't understand, is that delusion isn't just like random bad thoughts or wrong thoughts. It goes to the very heart of identity and personality. And it's like what you build your identity upon. It's not just like, oh, I think this and everything. So, even when people bring up American politics, today they say, oh, everybody's delusional or something. But that's not really true, because, if you believe, just to give an example, if you think that Donald Trump is like the living reincarnation of Hitler, then that's a delusion. But if you just think, if you just disagree with his policy and think he's going to destroy democracy, that's just like a thought. But, but if you think that he really is the living incarnation of Hitler and believe it, then, a lot of people, a lot of psychiatrists and people would say that's a delusion. And I'm not going to go into whether it's true or not, because, it's the personal beliefs that you build your identity upon, and your identity, rather than just something that can be summarily judged by someone else.
But you said something about the agnosia, that it's something that can be worked around, right? But for you, how were you able to overcome it? And what is the importance of medication in the recovery process?
Well, the medication has been essential. I feel that without medication, I would have been on a back unit of some state hospital like for the last 35 years. So, but in answer to your question, agnosognosia can be worked around. But in my case, as I say, I really feel my recovery began with the death of Dale, because it knocked it made me realize the agnosognosia out of my brain and made me realize how sick I'd really been for 10 years. So, and it caused me to adopt a completely new personality. That personality was what has been healing for the last 40 years. And it's only now, after all the healing is done, that Dewey's willing to acknowledge that Dale was back in Hackensack and take his vacation. And speaking of vacations, no, go on.
I was going to ask real quick, the medication, is it like a lifelong routine, or can you transition off it?
Well, the thing is that after a while, you don't want to get off the medication. I mean, because you realize that you're lifeline to sanity. I've been hospitalized 15 times, Ademola, and every time, I consider myself very fortunate that I got out 15 times. But, one of the first things they do whenever I went to the hospital was increase my medication. And I'm such like a druggie that I would like ask for extra medication, But ultimately, basically, you're going to have to take, if you're really schizophrenic, if you really got the diagnosis, which isn't true for most people that are diagnosed with it. That's another thing that's false. But because there's so many things that can cause a person to go psychotic. But with me, I had to manifest symptoms for 6 months before I could actually be diagnosed as a schizophrenic. Now, someone has a mushroom overdose and goes to the hospital, and they say immediately that they're a schizophrenic and they're marked for life. So, one major thing, which just major attitude adjustment, is I'm not going to be ashamed of being a schizophrenic. I'm going to celebrate it.
It's always essential to own your individuality.
Right.
Yes, but the stigma of the society can be very, very brutal. Can be very brutal, and I think it's a good way to segue into the next theme that I have for you in terms of the questions, and that is the family, and support. Family and friend support. There are a lot of forgotten victims of mental illness. So, like, you are passionate about coaching families and individuals, that are diagnosed with schizophrenia. But what kind of challenges do these families face? And even on your own journey, who were your support system?
Well, that's a very good question. And so basically I call it, I just want to make sure that people are clear. I don't mentor people with the diagnosis. I mentor the family caregivers, because and I think that's very important, because, basically about 7 years ago, I came up with this idea of like doing mentoring the family care, because I realized how much hell I put my own family through. And, just how devastating the diagnosis can be to a family that's not prepared for it. I mean, there's no way to prepare for a loved one getting schizophrenia. And, and it's just, and so they get hospitalized, and then if they're 18 and in America, there are we're called HIPAA laws, which means that if the patient doesn't want to, nobody can share any information with anybody unless they sign a release that is okay. So that means that a person can be put in the hospital, refuse to communicate, to give permission, and that means the family is completely cut off. So say you have a loved one who is, basically put in the hospital because they were having a psychotic episode at your home. So then, however long they're in, so say they're in the hospital for 2 weeks, which probably won't do much. So say they're in the hospital for 2 weeks. There's no way that, he can call a family, but if he doesn't want to deal with the family, there's no way the family can even know if he's in or out of the hospital. It's sort of like a Schrodinger's cat dilemma, Because at what point does the cat with the poison in its box eat the poison? And there's no telling. So that's sort of like the situation when someone gets sick and they don't want to have their information shared, then the family is like totally lost. So what I try to actually, I think you're going to ask me about this, is I was sort of like gifted by God with this idea called the Live Love method. And Live Love is a anagram which stands for learn, integrate, validate, explore, and then love is listen, observe, value, and express. So that's a core program that I take my clients through to not only learn how to communicate better with their loved ones, but also to teach them about the illness itself. But most importantly, in my mind, is to help them break the cycle of codependency of caregiving so that they can reclaim their own self-integrity and thus become much better caregivers instead of being just sort of like a servant of the person who's sick. And also how to integrate their integrity into that of the greater family, because I've known a lot of people who, a lot of family members get very upset when someone gets sick just because, the parent tends to like take care of the sick one. So the siblings and even the husband or the spouse can like lose out on the affection of their dear one because she or she is so involved in a caregiving.
I think that is very, very true, very well said. So, what are the biggest mistakes that families tend to make when trying to support a loved one affected by schizophrenia?
I think first of all, you have to be aware of agnosognosia. Most people have like no idea about agnosognosia. And since it affects like 70 to 90% of people with severe mental illness, it's essential to know about it. So I would suggest reading Dr. Amador's book, I'm Not Sick and I Don't Need Help. But my other thing is don't engage in confrontation. Respond, don't react. And therefore, because like people, especially if they're psychotic, they can be very triggering and looking for a reaction of anger or frustration or something. And so instead, I meant to give an example. If someone said to you, if your child said to you, you're the devil, you aren't my parent, you aren't my father. Don't you the first reaction is probably spank him or say something like really confrontational and argumentative that's just going to escalate the situation. So instead of saying, of course I am, how can you even say that? And I'm going to spank you now because, that's just a wrong idea. Instead of doing that, just take like 2 to 3 seconds and a couple of breaths and say, why would you say that? How can you even think that? Because I know I'm your father and I know how much I love you, and it really hurts me to have you say that. So it's just something like that, which takes the brunt of the anger, the psychosis off, your loved one's shoulders and sort of like diffuses it into the air. If they don't, the more they try to provoke you, the more patient you have to be. I say there are like 4 things that a caregiver has to have: patience, love, hope, and faith. And sometimes patience is the hardest thing that's tried. You just gotta, and it can be even more frustrating if you feel that, they're self-medicating, like drinking or smoking pot or even doing bigger drugs, and you think they're self-medicating and it's increasing their psychosis, and then they deny it and everything. It can take a lot of, you said you were the diplomat of generations, so, it can take a lot of diplomacy to deal with someone with a serious mental illness, especially if they're psychotic. And sometimes, you just got to walk away, and, in extreme cases, you got to walk away and walk outside and call the police, because, if your loved one is like punching holes in the wall, and that happens a lot. And, I should also say that, one of the popular myths about schizophrenia is, all schizophrenics are violent and want to kill everybody. And actually, it's a proven fact that it's 50% more likely a severely mentally ill person will have violence perpetrated against them than actually do violence themselves.
You've spoken about the live love method, right? And you emphasize on communication in a way to reduce conflict. And you also talk about that patience, very important, the love, the hope, the faith. But let's say you can only take a horse to the stream, you cannot force it to drink, right? So what should the families do in a situation wherein a loved one is refusing to take help, refusing treatment?
So this is something that people object to, but I think it's very good advice. So schizophrenics and people with severe mental illness usually love cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes for 35 years. I gave it up cold turkey in the year 2000. But I was talking to my pulmonologist about something, and I'm just chatting with her, and I say, yeah, I quit cigarettes. And she goes, what? I said, yeah, I quit cigarettes. She says, I've never heard of a person with your condition stopping smoking.
Wow.
So basically, it does have therapeutic effects for people with serious mental illness, cigarettes. Right. It calms them down. It reduces anxiety, And so basically what I not to overdo it, but I believe in bribing people to get what you want. So say your son hasn't taken a shower in 4 days, and his BO is starting to act up. You can say to him, and this can be applied to medication and seeing the doctor. It can apply to all sorts of things, but just say to him, if you take a shower for the next 3 days, I'll give you a pack of cigarettes. And because schizophrenics are almost as much in need of money as they are of cigarettes. So it kills 2 birds with 1 stone. But it doesn't even have to be cigarettes. It's just that's something that people with serious mental illness are attracted to.
Action and reward.
Right. But even if you just say, I'll cook your favorite meal, lasagna, for you tomorrow if you take your medication for 5 days.
Oh.
So whatever they like, I'll take you to the mall, I'll take you to the movie. If they can go to the movies, because a lot of people can't, but just know your loved one and know what they like, and then tell them you'll do that for them in exchange for them doing something for you.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I think that sounds good. The stigma, breaking the stigma and addressing the challenges. So the stigma is one of the biggest barriers to mental health care. So how can society better support individuals with schizophrenia? Are there like specific policies or social changes you advocate for?
Well, it goes through all levels of society. So, yeah, I mean, on the personal level, on the family level, if you have someone who's suffering, then, it's very personal. But on a bigger level, on a more social level, you know, we got to stop stereotyping, stereotyping the negativity. That's one thing. And then another thing is that make people realize how serious the situation is, because although schizophrenics are only 2% of the population, they still cost the United States $260 billion a year in like lost wages and all sorts of things, hospital costs and everything. So
Wow, that's
so
massive.
it's it's incumbent upon the nation to not only educate people about mental illness, but also to like take steps. And the sad thing is, Ademola, is a lot of states, they say the biggest mental hospital in the state is the jail system. I think in California, I think they estimate like 60% of prisoners have a serious mental illness, and if they aren't
Mm.
in jail, then a lot of them are homeless. They can't hold jobs, and there's just like no support system. And I'm part of one group called the Colorado Mad Moms, and
Whoa.
they all have loved ones who are severely mentally ill, especially with schizophrenia. And I go to their meetings, and all these meetings are is my son's out on the street again. They couldn't find the hospital for him. There's a shortage of beds. There's a shortage of caring. There's a shortage of psychiatrists and therapists because they get burnout. It's just like it's a total mess. And, I think we really need a complete overhaul of the mental health system, and not only the United States, but actually the world. But, nobody wants to commit the money to it, even though ultimately it's going to be economic.
So many people with schizophrenia struggle with self-medication. So what are the dangers of using drugs or alcohol as coping mechanisms? You know, what alternative coping strategies do you recommend?
Well, I gotta be I'll be transparent with you, but for 35 years I was smoking marijuana every day.
Mm.
Marijuana was I called it my mistress, because I would insulate myself from the suppressive reality I felt was around me by smoking a joint, because I knew as long as I was high, nobody could like really do anything to me.
Mm.
They could put me in the hospital, and my doctor did that a lot. And my doctor was always swearing to me that marijuana was my worst enemy and everything. I'd say it's keeping me safe from you, doc. And so, but and as I said, I've been hospitalized 15 times. The first time, 9 times, was when I was in the program. And the last 6 times I admitted myself, because I had the self-awareness to know I was psychotic. So,
Mm.
it goes both ways. But, after uh, basically 1986, I was smoking marijuana without, bad side effects at all, because I had my home, I had my space, and I could just like come home, smoke a joint, and and just enjoy it. And then actually, the reason I stopped wasn't because I fell out of love with marijuana. It was because I realized how much my mother hated it and blamed my whole mental history on marijuana. So out of love for her, I did stop for 17 years. But Amanda, just to give you an idea of what an inspiration is, I'll be more than a transparent here. But I said I help people write papers. Fairleigh Dickinson students write papers. No, I wrote the papers. So I wrote like 300 papers in 10 semesters for Fairleigh Dickinson students. And my
Oh.
routine was I would like get a bag of pot, and I'd write a page, smoke a joint, write a page, smoke a joint, write a page, smoke a joint.
Keep yourself busy.
Yeah, so so I'd have like 4 or 5 joints in one 5-page paper. So, but it did help my creativity.
Yeah.
I never ran out of words and everything. But right now my feeling is that marijuana is a nuclear weapon. You have to be very careful how you use it, and you can't just like blindly just consume marijuana or any drug, except medication. But so I did have like some times when the marijuana basically threw me over the edge into psychosis. I admit that, but basically I just kept smoking till I outgrew the symptoms. But and alcohol the same way. But when I did give up everything, a lot of people came up to me. I'd been drinking and smoking every day from 1976 to 2007. So that's basically 31 years. And a lot of people came up to me and said, "Thank God you stopped, Dale. You were going to die if you didn't stop." So, that's something to bear in mind, because you might think that marijuana doesn't have an effect, or alcohol doesn't have an effect, but it does. And even if it doesn't cause you to go psychotic, it's definitely a complicating factor.
So the revolving door of hospitalizations is a common challenge. So how can we break the cycle? What needs to be changed in the healthcare system?
Well, I think the most important thing to recovery is actually self-awareness. Getting out agnosognosia and getting into self-awareness. And so it took me 9 hospitalizations when I was in the program to be able to see when I was psychotic. And the revolving door was there for me. I was fully taking part in it because I loved the hospital. The program was a very claustrophobic psychiatric community. And I would just go to the hospital to meet new people and get the hell out of what I thought was an oppressive environment. But the hospital itself, is what you make it. And if you're fearful of it, I consider the 6 St. John, which is the mental unit of Hackensack University Medical Center, I can call it the Dialina control, Dialina being my spaceship. It really was like, someone took me to the hospital one time, and we're sitting there. She says, "This really is a spaceship, isn't it?" So, and Dialina control was where the whole spaceship was being controlled with, especially when I was up there, because I was the commander truly stylish of the Dialina. So basically, I just like flipped the script, and I turned the hospital into something that was very positive and a lot of fun and everything, despite the security, despite the restrictions and everything. But ultimately, it got to a point where I didn't need it anymore, because not only was I not going psychotic, but I was also self-aware enough to know that the hospital was just a crutch I was using that I threw away after a while.
So how about therapy? What role does therapy play in recovery?
Well, I was very fortunate to have even though he was godfather of muck, he was a very good therapist, and he was actually my shrink for 22 years, from the time I joined his program in 1976 to his death in 1999. And but therapy I think is like, it's not essential, but it's very helpful. And the thing is, it's very hard to find a therapist who will even take a person with schizophrenia these days, because most doctors you see for 30 minutes once a month to give medication prescriptions. That's what psychiatry has become for most, for people with serious mental illness. And then you might have a psychologist or a social worker to see as a counselor or therapist. But, this idea that I had for like 5 years in the program and 17 years after, like having a personal doctor who you could have like a full 45-minute session with 3 times a week. I mean, that's such a luxury. And I think that's why one of the major reasons I came out of it as well as I did. But, talk therapy, there's been a lot of controversy about talk therapy and how effective it is for people with severe mental illness. I think it's very helpful, but I think the medication is more important.
Okay, but what therapy types are available for persons with schizophrenia?
Well, there's to tell you the truth, I don't really know that much about that. I know there's CBT, which is a cognitive behavioral therapy, which basically tries to change the way you think, and then there's also this thing called the Three Principles, which is based upon the writings of a guy named Sydney Banks, who was a Scottish welder in Canada, and he had a revelation from God, and he it transformed his life, and he came up with this idea of the three principles. The three principles being consciousness, mind, and thought, and all human action is basically defined by those three things, and calls it a compound of psychological effects. So basically, if you think about it, there's nothing outside of consciousness, mind, and thought. So that's a psychological movement that's been gaining momentum for 50 years since Sydney Banks came up with it. And yeah, I think it's going to really move into the mainstream within the next 5 years just because people have been so successful with it. But my own history is my doctor was a classical psychoanalytic psychotherapist.
Wow. So for people who just recently got diagnosed, have you like had the opportunity to interact with the patients themselves? You did mention that you mentor the families. Have you had?
I need letters after my name to do that.
Okay, cool. That's well noted. So in terms of the mental health advocacy, what's your advice for people who are passionate about mental health advocacy?
Well, there's lots of organizations. There's NAMI, which is the National Alliance for Mental Illness. There's something that that I'm actually doing a boot camp for them about advocacy. It's called the Advocacy Center, and TAC, and I'm doing a advocacy boot camp now for the next 2 months to like really learn how to be a good advocate. An organization called Psychotic and Schizophrenic Action Alliance, PSAA. There's also the National Silent, NSSC. It's the National Stopping Silence Coalition or something like that. But you can just Google like mental health organizations and like see what they have to offer. NAMI is probably the most famous, NAMI, and they have all sorts of programs, like for family programs. And I'm actually in one of their programs, which is called NR on Voice, which is a presentation about mental illness using people who have lived experience telling about their story.
Wow. So are there any books or resources you would recommend to persons who would like to learn about schizophrenia and how to manage it, or their families, their loved ones before you go?
Actually, I'm looking at it now. It's called Schizophrenia and Related Disorders, a handbook for caregivers. And it's by Nicole Gillen. That's like a great reference book for just like general themes about schizophrenia, especially. And then, as I mentioned, there's I'm Not Sick and I Don't Need Help by Dr. Amador E. Fuller. I think it's either E. Fuller Torrey or E. Torrey Fuller. I never can. But
I'll find it and put it in the description for the podcast.
he wrote a book on I think it's called Surviving Schizophrenia, which is like a very good explanation about the whole thing. And there are a lot of other books, but the classic one is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey, which is the story of a guy who's sort of like put in a mental hospital and everything.
Interesting. So I would find these resources and put them in the description. So if you're watching us, you can get these resources in the description. How about
I'll send them to you.
Okay,
I'll
how
send
about
them.
yourself, your website, your social media? How can people reach out to you?
Well, actually, I just started a new Gmail account. It's called DW Author AUTHOR 25 at gmail.com. I'm waiting to have my first person visit it, but if you come there and you introduce yourself, then I'll send you a free book, whether it's my memoir about what happened at Dartmouth, poetry book, and actually I also have my novel, my best-selling novel for the 20th century, Velvet Velour's Follies Book 2, or The Flight of the Dialina, which is my spaceship. And that's a apocalyptic romance that takes place in 3 different time frames. But anyway, so if you go to dwauthor20gmail.com, get in contact with me. I send you a book, and the cost is totally up to you. If you want to just get it for free, you can. If you want to pay me, fine. But I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it to get my voice and influence greater. So that's DewAuthor25 at gmail.com. And then my website for my Live Love program is www.ulivelove. So, and then my Instagram is Dale, DALE.Walsh, WALSH.14. And I also have another Instagram account called Commander Do, which is a CMDR _DW.
Wow, that is a lot. But then, we will have those in the description. For me, it is a very, very big thank you to you. I am very, very big on gratitude. I always say gratitude is good attitude. And the
But that's one of the things that's always gotten me through too.
Wow.
Faith, gratitude, and belief in myself and God.
Yeah, I love that. Believe in yourself and believe in your God. Yes.
Can't forget forgiveness, but gratitude, forgiveness, and faith in yourself. And that's what I say to people who are dealing with the diagnosis yourself is just be patient and never doubt yourself, and eventually things will work out.
Never doubt yourself. I love that.
Even though people are going to call you delusional as they've been
Definitely.
doing me.
Definitely. But you've got yourself in the end.
Yeah.
Wow. It's been a great session. And the SI unit.
You can always invite me back if you want to go deeper.
Definitely. So let me make a deal with the audience, right? Please, I would love to have Dale back, but I need you guys to send questions. Send questions in the comment section so that I can have your thoughts and your questions prepared for Dale. And of course, Dale, what time do you want to book on the calendar? Do you want to say it now, or do you want to tell me privately, or you're just going to book it in the calendar privately? So let's know.
Well, why don't you get in touch with me again on Podmatch and set up another appointment calendar on Podmatch?
Okay, great. We'll do that. Okay, I won't lose my train of thought. I always say that the SI unit of measuring life is time. And of course, if you share your time with someone, it means you've shared your life with that person. Thank you very much for sharing your time and your life with us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate you.
Odewade.
We appreciate you. Odewade, Gatorade, lemonade.
Drink to two.
All the way.
Drink to two.
Whoa. It's been great. And of course, guys, if you've actually watched till the end or listened to the end, please like, subscribe, share, just show us love, join the channel. And of course, I will keep working tirelessly to bring in fantastic, awesome, wonderful individuals like you, aka Dale E. Walsh. For me, it is love and respect, and goodbye, guys. Whoa.